Welcome back, everyone. I'm Mark Zorgelos, and I will be your host for this last session of the ICPA with a focus on managing letter mail decline. We have three presentations lined up for you. As a reminder, please don't hesitate to use the Q&A opportunity at the end of the session. We will answer those questions, so please provide us with them in the window on the right-hand side of your screen. We will start this session off with a presentation by Glenn McGillivray from Canada Post, who will bring us a presentation on vision-guided vehicles pilot. So over to you, Glenn.
Hi, thank you very much. Yeah, so as mentioned, my name is Glenn McGillivray. I'm a manager at Canada Post. Myself and my team are focused on automation, and one of the technologies we've been looking at is vision-guided vehicles, and we ran a pilot over the last year and a half testing out this technology. Okay. So I'm going to start by summarizing kind of the key challenges that we're facing, and I think some of them are probably very similar to the challenges that are being faced in other posts, but we've seen a fairly large decline in letter mail and growth in e-commerce, parcels and packets, and our material handling needs are rapidly changing. So today, across our network, we have over 500 what some people call fork trucks. We call them material handling equipment, motorized, and they operate 16 to 24 hours a day. It's really over 3 shifts, so either 2 or 3 shifts. Many are in our large sort facilities. Some are in some of the smaller ones, but anyone that's in a large facility represents a lot of cost and a lot of potential safety issues. So what we've been trying to do is find ways to reduce that cost and to make it safer. And I seem to be having a struggle going to the next page here. Yeah, next slide, please. Sorry, it disconnected on me. So to summarize, did it go to the next slide? No, maybe you could jump to the, okay, yeah, that's good. I apologize, everyone. So to summarize, what we've been looking at is various automated guided vehicle technologies. Specifically, we piloted one that uses a vision guided vehicle technology. And that vision guided vehicle technology was really attractive to us because it has really low infrastructure cost and a potential to improve safety. Next slide, please. So in terms of potential applications, what we've been looking at is really the key material movements. So between the dock and staging and into work centers, as you can see there, potentially loading packet dumpers, dispatching back to dock and staging, and in situations where we have to cross dock, so where a cage or a plastic pallet of product is moving through the building, but it's not stopping to be sorted at any work centers. We do think there are applications in some of the other areas, but we don't want to, at least initially, look at them because we found that there's a real opportunity here in this material movement. It's hard to plan for, it's hard to track, and it's difficult to measure, and it's a high cost of labor. Next slide, please. So in our solution, what we did is we picked a sort of a medium-sized facility that we have in the Toronto area to conduct a test. We liked this facility because it didn't have a day shift, which meant that we had some time kind of in between to make changes and tweaks and improve. And it was also kind of a good size with a nice loop. So it's easy, no dead spots, no dead ends where AGVs could easily get stuck. That we could test and see how the AGVs would flow and compare them against the level of productivity we would have with a traditional fork truck. What we designed was a number of pickup and drop-off locations, and then we used tablets as the way to call the AGVs and have them come and pick up the product and move it to the drop-off location. Unlike a traditional fork truck, the way that this kind of works is as opposed to driving around looking for work, this is more like an Uber where it works when you call it. So only when needed does it start moving on the floor. The rest of the time it goes and it sits at a taxi stand waiting for work. We like this because, well, it uses less power but B, it's safer. It means you don't have an additional piece of equipment driving around on the floor. For the purposes of the pilot, when it came to charging, we were able to send them to charge, but we actually had an operator just plug them into charge. For a full deployment, I think we would look at having them self-charge. Next slide, please. In terms of the technology itself, the way vision-guided technology works is it uses cameras, and the cameras essentially take video as the AGV moves, and it compares it against a programmed route, and it converts that video into a point cloud. So a bunch of points are referenced, not unlike like our eyes would work if we were walking around and remembering key points in a building to help us navigate. This technology works very much the same. So one of the nice things about this technology is because it takes so many points, even if other things in the facility move around, whether equipment moves or things change, it still only requires a handful of points to be able to navigate. So it's able to handle a changing environment. For this particular company, what they use is they also look at the ceiling, and often the ceilings don't change as much as the floor or things around it. So that also helps with the navigation. In terms of programming, very, very easy to program. It's almost like, I don't know if anyone's familiar with programming a macro in Excel, but effectively you walk it through the route, you beep where you want to beep, you stop where you want to stop in program mode. And when you're done, it's programmed, and then you set it on its way. So very quick, very easy, no signs, no additional infrastructure to install, magnets, paint, anything. In terms of the equipment and maintenance, this one is built on a standard chassis, and then it's plug and play for all the sensors. We like that because we know that these standard chassis that are in the industry are well tested and well used, and that they will last well. The other thing that we chose during the pilot was to put in a fairly high capacity battery. So it had a big battery compartment in it, and we were able to run these things for 16 hours of continuous operation, so it was effectively over 2 shifts. During an actual implementation, we may look at other alternatives to opportunity charge during breaks and things that may not require such a big battery, but for the purposes of the pilot, it worked quite well. And next slide, please. So when we talk about safety, safety was a big factor for us. And it's a big factor because we do have a fairly heavily unionized environment. There's obviously in the world lots of concern over driverless cars and things. That may not be quite the same for a driverless forklift, but it certainly has the same kind of connotation. And it was really critical to us that when we went into this pilot that we understood the safety features and that they were going to be safe to operate in our environment. As part of the pilot, we did have them operating alongside other manual fork trucks. So there's the risk of all kinds of things. And there's also the risk of people, despite signs and lines and proper walkways, there's always a risk that someone could step out in an aisle. So we wanted to know for sure that these things were going to be safe. So a number of the key features in terms of safety is depicted here. There's a slow field that sort of looks ahead and slows the vehicle down if it sees anything coming, and a stop field if you get within a certain range that has the vehicle stop. There's also sensors in a number of places around the vehicle, including sensors, laser sensors on the fork tips that lets it know when to stop. And then there's the primary sensor that's along the ground. You can see about 15 centimeters off the ground that's looking ahead for any other obstructions that it might not see. What we did find during the pilot is we didn't have any incidents, no collisions, no other issues. So that's a really good sign. The supplier themselves has had, I don't think they've ever had any major incidents reported. And so that to me was a really big win for us in terms of going through this pilot and being able to talk to our union about the safety aspects of it. Next slide, please. So results overall, we found that this was really safe for use in our operation. We believe it can be used in a 24-hour operation if we use opportunity charging, and we are strategic about how and when we charge. We did find the maintenance costs were low during the pilot, which ran about 1.5 years. We only really did the PMs every 6 months, and outside of that, we never had any real maintenance issues or things that needed to be fixed. We also found it could be deployed and stabilized quickly. And by that, I mean, obviously it takes time to manufacture, but once it arrived on our floor, it was only a few weeks before we had it up and running, programmed, and we were able to train staff and have them understand. So stabilization was relatively quick and training was quick. Overall, the ROI is looking to be about 2 to 3 years. Probably the one key factor is, there are high volume routes and there are low volume routes in a facility when you're talking about material movement. I think it's ideal to deploy a little at a time and really look at where the best options are to start with automation of this type and then ramp it up over time. And I know I have it in at the bottom there, but I do think a good change management plan is absolutely critical, especially if you don't already have this type of thing in your operation, because it is new to people. People are a little worried about, the effect it has on their job, but also on the effect it might have on safety. And we did find, though, that with good communication and working closely with our operators, it certainly is something that they can embrace and that they can find value in. So that went quite well. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, what we did find was, this technology is safe and will reduce costs. That's probably the key message. We really liked that it was infrastructure free, and this is especially true for the majority of our facilities, which are already there. They're not greenfield facilities. We didn't want to have to go in and make major changes to infrastructure in order to be able to deploy these. I mentioned that they're quick to deploy and easy to train operators and quite easy to maintain. There are other technologies in the industry beyond vision-based that are LiDAR-based and other types of technology that could do something similar. But we found this particular technology was quite effective. In terms of ROI, what we did find is an MMHE or a fork truck does drive faster than a traditional or than an AGV, and part of that is they don't get up to speed as quickly. They always take time to stop. They always follow every rule you've programmed, but the other part of it is they don't reach a top speed at the same level, which means there's not the same risk when they're going through the facility. It does mean, though, that a manual fork truck driver could potentially operate at a higher rate and do more. But if you're running it over a couple of shifts, it easily covers the equivalent of having a person on each shift running around doing the same amount of work. So we figure on a single shift, it's about 2 to 1. In terms of actual staff, it's about 1 to 1. In terms of next steps, we recently released an RFP just a few weeks ago, actually. We were seeking to purchase around 100 AGVs, possibly VGV technology or something similar that we could deploy in our 5 largest sortation facilities over the next number of years. And we plan to start that next year. So we're pretty excited about this technology and its applications for material handling. I think that's the end. So I appreciate your time, everyone. I'm really happy to be sharing this with you.
Okay, thank you very much, Glenn, for this excellent presentation. I think you encountered a little bit of the similar issues I encountered yesterday with the controls of the presentation, but it turned out to work well. So thank you. Would like to introduce our next speaker, Didier Thierriot from La Poste in France. And he will bring us a presentation on La Poste's project for robotics FlexiBac, the robotics FlexiBac project. So over to you, Didier.
Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the invitation. I'm an old mechanical engineer. It's a privilege to be able to work in an industry that I am so passionate about. And I had the great opportunity to work on innovation projects for my process improvement since 1990. I will present you one of the last process automatization I have been managed to decrease the work tediousness in the manual handling areas. The project is named FlexiBac. Bac means tray in French, and hardness work is done by a poly-articulated robot. A proof of concept was realized in 2018 when La Poste introduced for the first time a polyarticulated robot linked to a flat sorting machine. And it was to feed the input line of this machine with empty trays. We have taken the opportunity of this flexible robotic device to experiment the feasibility of loading our postal trays inside the trolleys. We passed the test successfully in spite of existing environment constraints, and thanks to the expertise of the robotic integrator. All right. So now FlexiBack is the first operational system which loads trolleys automatically. It has been effective since October 2020 at Bordeaux Sorting Center. Bordeaux, in south west of France. Right. So yes, so the objective was to load the trolleys automatically, reduce the manual handling, dynamically, sorry, re-centralizing major trace traffic flow in direction of the robot. So it depends of the traffic. The traffic depends of the hour of the days, and I will explain that to you later. We have a very low sorting rate error because it's automatic and the scanner on barcode works well. And also the return on invest is around 3 years. Right. So this is the general framework. So at the right top corner, you see a FlexiBack, the logo FlexiBack. So it is linked to one of the sorter outputs of a trace sorter. The trace sorter, it's a fifth trace sorter. And in one of the outputs, we have linked the robotic device. At La Poste, we have two types of tray, the orange for the small letter and the gray for flats. And the robot can load the two types of trays simultaneously. And concerning the trolley, we have only one type of trolley, hopefully. And on one trolley, we can load 15 gray tray to 21 trays when it is an orange tray. Right? So this is another, sorry, I can't, all right. So you can see a general overview of the solutions. We have developed an intelligent IT systems. It was developed at La Poste because it concerns the process, the functional process. And in that case, we prefer to manage ourselves the IT systems. For this reason, it's not necessary to ask to the supplier some evolution. We can do that quickly and as we want. So our new IT communicates with the tray sorter field and with the robots. The supplier is Oz in France. And so La Poste can decide where to sort each tray each time a tray is scanned in the process. So we have some scanners on the tray sorter and also some scanners around the robot. All right. So concerning the tray sorter, 3 main decisions can be taken concerning the tray sorter. Firstly, we can sort the tray to the robot. Secondly, we can retain the tray on the carousel for one more round. It's a storage. And thirdly, we sort the trade as usual to a manual sorting line. Okay, and for the robot, it is the same thing. When a tray is scanned, we give the answer where to sort the tray around the robot. So you can see an overview of the robot. So there are 10 stations around the robot. So that means that it's a tray sorting machine with 10 outputs. Yeah, so when the tray are sorted from the tray sorter sieve, they arrive to the robot, and we have some accumulated conveyor which permit to the robot to have every time some tray to load. So this is the scheduler. So it is integrated in the IT, and it allows the organizer to manage how to manage and how to decide which trolley direction has to be sorted automatically according to the time of day. So every 30 minutes, he can select some directions. So maximum is 10 directions at the same time. And in Bordeaux sorting center, there are 350 trolleys outwards. So the trolley outwards are the line, and on the columns there are the time, the 30 minutes times. So the organizer can decide to select a separation, a trolley separation to the robot, or he can decide to make it automatic. He can let the IT system to decide. So I will explain you that later. It's a new concept. Right. Next slide. So the storage. We use the existing sorter, sieve sorter, to store the trays. So to maximize robot activity, it is necessary to attribute its 10 exits dynamically, depending on the instantaneous trace flow. It is identified on the tray sorter, the tray flows. On one of the candidates for automatic sorting in the scheduler. So when a trolley's tray flow is insufficient to fill the trolley at the desired pace or frequency, the trays are stored on the tray sorter carousel until sufficient volume has been accumulated to make a complete trolley. Then, when the target volume has been reached, trays are sent from the tray sorter to the robot. So the tray sorter carousel has a capacity to store up to around 300 trays. And as we explained, the La Poste IT can decide to retain some direction, some destination, as long as the target level for the robot is not met. So the storage capacity for the robot are shown on the graph in yellow, a yellow bar graph. And it is adjusted depending on the traffic flow, the direct traffic flow, which is shown with the green bar graph. So when the traffic is high, so in green, the robot's stock is low. At the opposite, when the traffic is low, the stock is high, and trays can be stored a long time on the carousel. So there are now, yes, since October, so we begin the installation and the beginning of the processing. And so you can see week after week the performances. So the traffic, the blue bars, progress regularly. On the red curves is the mechanization rate. So the target is to have more than 25% of the total traffic of the tray sorter. So that means the tray which are going into the truck. So since now 8 weeks now, we are up to this level. So it's a good thing for the project, because for concerning the rentability, concerning the return on invest, we had to be higher than 25% if we want to have a ROI, so return on invest lower than 3 years. All right. And yes, this work is done now. So technically, we don't have so much problem now, because at first we had some problems. And now it is to the organizer, manager, to improve the traffic organization with the scheduler. It is why now we can see this improvement. It is due to the organizer management. So concerning the work harness, we plan to eliminate more than 200 tons per week of manual handling with one robot. This activity is considered as one of the most tedious in the sorting centers. Trays are sometimes heavier than 10 kilograms, and the design of the trolleys side make the position uncomfortable at the lower and higher stack levels. We have not quantified yet the cost saving due to the decreasing of the work stoppage due to the work harness stress. So concerning the opportunity, first of all, as the average age at La Poste increases, there is an interest to automate manual handling operation, avoiding tiredness, stress, and stoppage of work. Secondly, the automatized sorting quality is near perfect. Thirdly, it contributes to elementary traffic flow knowledge, and therefore allows to improve the organization management. Fourthly, the return on invest is around 3 years when the weekly traffic is over 25 trays. And lastly, bringing technology inside those traditional manual operation that gives some operators access to new skills and will allow them to develop and move up on the career ladder. So the conclusion of the project is automation of the trolley loading. It was not a technological evidence story. It was really a challenge. Implementing the automation on the existing trolleys and trays with real life respective deformation. As you know, tray and trolley could be deformed. Was the most important difficulty that we resolved successfully in 2019 with the proof of concept that we done at first. Another difficulty was to control the tray sorter FIV on the robot with our IT system. Some other difficulties classic in a mechanization project that have been solved step by step. So La Poste considers that the solution will be stabilized around June 2021, so soon. During the second semester, we will look for the definitive KPI of the solution. An optimization of the solution as the number of stations, because now we have 10 stations, perhaps 8 stations are necessary, will be analyzed with the manufacturer to adjust the best performance on cost ratio. And finally, depending to the economic savings, we will adjust the investment policy for the next few years. So now I have finished my presentation, and I have the pleasure to show you a video of the system at Bordeaux site. So please, you can. So it is the input of the robot with the accumulated conveyor, Ariane conveyor. At the lower side, it is the manual line. So there is a lift. So the tray are scanned, and they go to the robot or not. If they go to the robot, they go on the accumulated conveyor. We have a large screen to inform the production operators, and now the robots take so orange tray or gray trays. Hopefully, we have managed in our trays some holes which permit the robot to take them. So you can see that yes, here it's a cover for the safety of operators. We have an accumulated storage, 7 trays can be stored temporarily upside. Okay. So when the tray arrived, it is scanned, and our IT informs the robot where to load the tray. The throughput is 500 trays per hour. So we print a label each time a tray is finished, is completed, and yes, we put the label on it. This is the teams of the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Didier, for this interesting presentation. So I saw some questions popping up already, so we'll come back to you later in the Q&A. As a final paper for this ICPA conference, we will get a presentation from bpost on the alternating distribution model, or ADM in short. Unfortunately, the initial presenter and the ADM program director, Bernard van Kousenbroek, is on sick leave, so we had to replace him, and Samuel Sneesens will bring you this presentation, and he worked closely with Bernard on the realization of ADM. So we are in good hands here. So over to you, Samuel.
Thank you, Mark. And hi, everybody. Thanks for joining the bpost presentation of the alternating distribution model that we introduced about 1 year ago. So I'm Samuel Sneesens. I'm replacing Bernard, as Mark said. I work closely with him for the last year of the project, and I'm still working with him within his team as the technology and automation chapter lead. First of all, let me first remind the context of bpost when we started the project in 2018. So the figures I'm showing here are from that time, and so are figures before the COVID crisis. Like any postal operator, bpost was facing an acceleration in the decrease in letters volume and in increase in parcels volume. On the one hand, on the letter size, Until 2016, the decrease was limited to about 5% per year, but after that we saw a clear acceleration, and this from all types of our letters customers. On the other hand, on the parcel side, we saw also a clear acceleration, and there are here two important things to mention. First of all, before the COVID, the e-commerce in Belgium was less developed than in some neighboring countries, like, for instance, UK, Germany, or the Netherlands. And so this made the increase in volume, and especially after the COVID crisis, even more challenging for us. And secondly, it's also important to mention that bpost has a highly integrated last mile model, meaning that letters and parcels are distributed together by the same postal carrier. And so there is no separate network for parcel distribution. Finally, it's important to mention that until then, before ADM, the Belgian leather market was typically a D+1 market. So, for instance, all our daily mails or our administrative mails were D+1 products. And we have seen both from our senders and receivers that the need for a D+1 delivery had decreased. So our customers could live with a non-priority offering as long as they could also choose for a priority option. So this paved the way for the adaptation of our last mile model. And for clarity's sake, for the rest of that presentation, for me, priority product will mean D+1 delivery, and non-priority product, of course, will mean an extended SLA. Of course, the continued decline in letters volume had put our profitability at risk. Indeed, the cost of the last mile operations do not follow a linear curve with volume, as does, for instance, much of the sorting operation. So we needed to find a way to improve our last mile model, to improve the penetration rate, which is the number of boxes we have to drop the product into on a given round. So therefore, we introduced the alternating distribution model, whose objective was to reduce the frequency of the last mile delivery by consolidating products as much as possible. So in practical terms, as illustrated on the slide, we created two zones, A and B. On a given day of the week, between Monday and Thursday, zone A and B will be alternatively high density and low density zones. In a high density zone, for instance, zone A on Monday, we will be delivering all the products, priority and non-priority products, and this via a regular round. In a low density zone, for instance, the zone A on Tuesday, we will be delivering only the priority product, and this via a point-to-point rounds. And on Friday, both zones A and B will be low density zones with only priority product which will be delivered. So doing so, for a given postal address, the post agent passes twice a week with all the products, and the rest of the week it will be passing only if there is any priority product to deliver. So the non-priority product is consolidated on 2 days of the weeks, increasing our penetration rate and optimizing our delivery cost. And on the low density zone, we can drive more efficiently and still make some savings on the driving time. So that's a bit the rationale of this. I won't be long on that slide. I just wanted to focus on some key points that the project team has had for that project. So of course we had to focus on our cost ratio, but we had also to pay attention to our revenues, meaning that adapting the product offering would lead to churn, and that was really an important attention point. We had to keep our employees satisfied and, of course, avoid strike. we had to maintain the customer satisfaction and the overall quality of our last mile model. And we had also a really strong deadline in March 2020 for that project. This is a high-level impact analysis of that new model on the whole value chain of bpost. So I will deep dive later in this presentation on some of them, so I will go quickly on this one. Regarding the product offering, we mainly introduced the non-priority offering where it was needed, to make it short. On the intake side, we had to align our processes to comply with the new product offering. Sorting side has been massively impacted, and I will deep dive on this later. And the transport organization has been reorganized to take into account an extended sorting time frame for the non-priority product. So we had to introduce a non-priority cutoff, and new trips have been organized. And of course, last but not least, the distribution side has been also massively impacted because our runs have been touched by this change. Given the overall impact of that project on all of our customers in terms of phasing of the rollout, we had no other choice than go for a big bang rollout. And yet to ease that rollout on the distribution side, we choose finally to keep the existing rounds and to cut them in two parts, high and low density, instead of starting with a brand new set of regular and dynamic rounds. So last year, we introduced the new distribution model. The changeover took place over one weekend for about 10,000 rounds. Postman runs were not changed, but they were divided into a high density and a low density part. So to make it a bit more visual, you can see a picture representing the workplace of a postal agent. Every slot represents a physical postal address, and that's the place where the postman sorts the product he has to deliver on his daily round. So you can see that on today's round, the postman will start with the low density side on the left of the picture. So you can see that there are less volume on that part, and he will finish his round with the high density part where there are more volumes. If you were there a day later to take the same picture, you would probably see the mirror effect. And on Friday, both sides would be with less volume, and actually that will be a point-to-point delivery for the entire round. A few words about the product offer evolution. So we had to fundamentally rethink our product offering, as said previously, mainly to introduce the non-priority offer in a letters market that was mainly a D+1 market. So we choose not to change the parcels offer and the press because we wanted to keep offering everyone access to news every day. On the daily registered and outbound mail, we mainly introduced the non-priority offering, and we aligned the SLA. On the advertising mail, I mean direct mail and unaddressed mail, we introduced here some new timeline delivery concepts with the concept of beginning of week, meaning a product that has to be delivered on 2 days at the beginning of the week, so on Monday or Tuesday. End of week is a product that has to be delivered on Wednesday or Thursday, and week certain is a product that has to be delivered between Monday and Thursday. On Friday, so there are no advertising mail distributed in a normal week. So this was quite a big change for our senders. And for the rest, so admin mail, we also introduced a non-priority offer. What I would like to emphasize here is that we had to discuss a lot with our customer to onboard them, to inform them about this new offering, and to let them the time to be ready and to adapt themselves to that new product offering. If I focus now on the operational chain, so you see the full chain from the senders to the receivers, and I will focus here specifically on the sorting center. In the sorting center, we had three main changes. Firstly, we had to introduce a completely separate flows for the priority products and the non-priority products. This to ensure the quality of the priority for the priority product. Secondly, we have decided that the sorting center should function as storage places for the non-priority product. So it means that sorting center have the responsibility and the important task to send the right product at the right time to the distribution offices. And this is a major change in that project. And finally, until then, the sorting leitmotif was everything the customer drops off today must be transported to the distribution offices as soon as possible. So for the people working in a sorting center, it means that whereas previously everything was sorted mainly overnight, some of the sorting activities have been moved to the daytime. And so it required also a lot of reorganization in the sorting center. In practical terms, to make this a bit more visual, if we follow the several steps from the senders to the receiver, so regarding the senders, we ask our customers to make the split between zone A and zone B as much as possible. We have adapted all the processes upstream of the sorting center to keep the flow separate. In the sorting center, we will have two separate flows for priority and non-priority product. Priority product will be processed in the evening or night shift on day of arrival to be delivered on the following day, whereas the non-priority product will be stored overnight until the next morning shift, and then only they will be processed in the morning shift. We will separate, if not yet done, zone A and zone B, and the part of the volume that has to be delivered one day later will be processed in the evening or night shift to be delivered on the following day. And the last part of the volume will be stored once again until the next morning shift, and so on and so on. So I hope it's clear. If it's not, there is, I put a clear example in the paper that you should receive afterwards. To conclude that presentation, we thought it was worth saying a few words about the methodology for such an impacting project. So I won't come back to the interest of the Agile methodology and the Scrum principles. We also defined some golden rules that I share with you here. So that was for the project team. I want rather to focus of some interesting lessons learned from that project. We tried to anticipate as much as possible some change to mitigate the Big Bang effect. So for instance, in the sorting center, we tried to anticipate some new process that were in force way before the real rollout. So for instance, to be concrete, the split between the priority and the non-priority flows was in force way before the rollout, even if it was not used in distribution and that the products were still distributed all together. But at least the sorting center were ready for the Big Bang. On the distribution side, we have also tested a lot of concepts on the field. So we have defined some pilot distribution offices during the project to test some real concept like the cut of the runs in two parts, the half and half distribution, and other impact on the individual preparation of the product for the postman. So we try to anticipate as much as possible, and this was key in the success of the project. We also paid a lot of attention to the change management toward our operation teams. So we organized a lot of information training sessions. We also organized debriefing session of the pilots, and where actually the teams involved in the pilots have become the best ambassador of the project to their colleagues. So it was also a key learning of the project. Finally, we communicate also a lot externally toward our customers. Our senders were so deeply implied in the process. And towards the receivers, we also communicated a lot when we made some testing locally, for instance, and prior to the rollout, everyone in Belgium received an information folder in his mailbox to explain the impact of the new distribution model. So, as a conclusion, this project started on time on March 16, 2020. So it was 2 days before the first lockdown in Belgium. So it was quite a bumpy start. The go live went well. Yeah, we had to make a daily end-to-end follow-up a bit longer than foreseen due to the COVID. We had no negative impact on the quality. We had no strikes, so it went well actually. And COVID accelerated the challenge we were facing, so making our model even more relevant. And so we were doubly happy to have succeeded in that project. So this concludes my presentation. Thanks for your attention, and yeah, would be happy to answer any question. Mark.
Thank you, Samuel. Thank you for this excellent presentation. We did receive quite a few questions, so we will now look into answering some of those that we received. So let's have a look at questions. So I see here an upvoted question from Chitram Jaipersad. A question for Didier. Has La Poste envisioned using the FlexiBack on their parcel systems for final sorting parcels to containers at the sorter runouts? Didier. I cannot hear Didier.
Sorry. Okay, now. All right. So yeah, the problem is not the same because of course for the mail activities we have some trays. The dimensions are standard, and concerning the parcel, so of course it's not the same thing. But we analyze some solutions around the parcel sorter. But so now we have not planned to install this type of sorter for the parcels.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Another question, one for Glenn. The Canada Post AGV transporting a single type of container or a variety of types?
So the two main types are, we use these metal cages we call monotainers, and the other one is a blue plastic pallet, which we can place product on top of, either a Gaylord or we can place other pallets on top of.
Okay, continue with you, Glenn. The next question. You talked about engaging the unions. It was for a pilot. A pilot is often more easy. So how will you manage for a rollout? How will you manage the unions for a rollout? Do you have any tips?
I mean, so communicate early and often is probably the biggest thing you can do. To me is we've been trying to make a better effort at Canada Post to be more engaged with our unions early on, not surprise them with changes. So I think that's one of the keys. The other big key is we focused heavily on the safety side, so engaging with our health and safety committees at the national and local level, making sure that they participate in the risk assessments that we do and that they have an opportunity to provide feedback as we roll it out on the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. A question for Samuel. Was there any loss of customers or did they adapt easily to the new products?
Most of them adapted quite, yeah. Most of them adapted their process. We have lost one customer, yeah. But it was quite aligned with our assumption overall, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Samuel. I see a question was upvoted for Didier. How many of these robotic systems do you plan to install at La Poste?
Okay, so we plan to install this robotic system on a big sorting center, on where we have a tray sorter. So we have 10 sorting center. So the potential is yes, 10 sorting center, and in each sorting center, at minimum, we will install one robot, and in the very big sorting center as Paris, for example, perhaps 2 robots.
Okay, thank you. Let me see. A short question also for you, Didier. Who is the robot vendor company you worked with? I think I
yes,
saw it.
Okay, understand. It's a French supplier. His name is OSE, O-S-E, at Angers. Angers, near Nantes. I'm working in Nantes. It's yeah, see, the turnover of this company is 30 million euro per year. So it's a good supplier, and they used to work with industry, car industry, Tesla, all around the world.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Still some questions left here. Yes. Yeah. Again, for you, Didier, did you have sufficient space? Does it take more or less space than the process it replaces?
Yes. So as you know, in this project, we try to automatize the tray loading with the minimum investment. So the big investment on the IT, and of course with the robots, and we use the sorting center, the tray sorting center. So we try to use the maximum existing machines, and we install the robot at the end of one of the output line of the tray sorter. So at Bordeaux we have 13 lines with 2 faces, and at the end of one of these lines we install the robot. So it takes place because around the line we have some area to install to make the trolley weight to be loading, and the percentage of space of not the space, but we decrease the number of area for trolley. The ratio is 3%, so we have 3% less trolleys, manual trolleys around the lines of the tray sorter.
Okay.
And with this mechanical system, also there is a degraded mode. So if the robot is switch off, as a failure, the tray sorter could continue to sort the tray manually. So that means that for some separation, a separation could be processing by the robots at the same time as there is the same separation on the manual area. So if the robot has a damage or a failure, it's possible to process the tray manually.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Let's pick another question here. So for Samuel, this one. For ADM, at what point was this option triggered? Is it because bpost had a low volume density, therefore necessary to increase density, maintain profitability? Samuel?
Yeah, you hear me? Actually, we wanted to consolidate some products, to improve the penetration rate, and at the same time we had to keep offering priority options. So we had to have 2 networks, and that's why we introduced that alternating distribution model. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So we are almost through our time and almost through our questions, so that's good. Another question for Didier. La Poste still invests in robotic automation of the mail activities. How do you position such mail projects compared to parcel automation projects, which tend to be more popular?
Yes, of course. I can say that, yes, we continue to process mail, and the turnover for La Poste so process activities is a major turnover for La Poste. So we must continue to process mail and to be efficient. So for the big sorting center, it's necessary to continue to make the process better. So where it is necessary to automatize it, and if the return on invest is here, yes, we can install some new systems. But I think, yes, probably it's one of the last big projects for the mail activities.
Okay, yes, unfortunately. Let's see. One question for Samuel. bpost's ADM project seems to have affected a lot of stakeholders. How did you manage those stakeholders?
Actually, we have 4 or 5 main stakeholders to manage. I mean, the senders that were implied in the process. So I already explained this. The receiver also, we had also to manage the unions. So they were implied at every level in this project. I mean, at operational and local level, they were implied in the testing, and we got some feedback from them. We had also a lot of discussion at the more national and in a more formal way with them. We had also to manage the federal government, which is one of the main stakeholders, and also the federal bodies. And so that has been done through the usual teams in charge of that. And we worked in close cooperation with all the communication teams to manage carefully the whole set of stakeholders. Yeah. And also we had to manage the press, but here COVID helped us because 2 days after the rollout, the lockdown was in force, and so they had other topics to cover.
Okay. Thank you. So that's all we have time for. There's one question left, but that will be handled by Ian. So the question was, how can we reach out to the speakers? I think Ian can tell us all about that. So over to Ian to wrap up the day and answer that last question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. And thanks to Samuel, Glenn, and Didier for 3 great presentations in our final session. So that brings us to the end of our first virtual conference. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope, and certainly for me, it continues to reinforce the value of us, sharing openly on our shared challenges and opportunities that we face, and all the different interesting things that are going on. And as Mark said, the question was asked, well, how can I follow up with people on this? If you go to our event page, you will see a tab called Meetings. That tab gives you access to everyone else who has registered for the event. So all the speakers are there, the committee members are there as well. And you can request an opportunity to follow up with them through that part. So log on to the event site with your email and password and look for the Meetings tab. We'll also be hosting for the next 2 months the materials from this conference, so you can go there to refer to them. It's not something that'll be there forever, but we do have opportunity to host, keep the site up until the 31st of July. So that resource is available to you as well. As I said, I hope you enjoyed the event. We would like to know if you would like us to do a further event. So you will receive a survey. If this is of no interest to you, we'll not do it. It takes a lot of time and effort, and speakers go to a lot of trouble to prepare, which we really appreciate, but it's for you. So if you'd like us to, maybe we're considering an event in October. When you get the survey, if you find this valuable, that will encourage us to have a follow-up event. We also are excited for 2022. We believe we'll be out of this pandemic, and we'll have a chance to reinstate our longer face-to-face conference. And so stay tuned as well for plans to that. If you have registered for this, we'll keep you informed about all those upcoming events and open to your suggestions as well on topics, etc. At this time, on behalf of the organizing committee, and you met many of them, Mark, Shane, Bernard, Anna, and also there's Paul Morris, who you didn't see, from the Royal Mail, myself, Ian Kerr with Canada Post. We have also Scott from Australian Post, but we'll forgive him because of the time difference. But we really, as behalf of the organizing committee, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank the behind the scenes team from Proof Experiences, Shane, Natalie, and Chris, who've done a great job to facilitate all the online material and help us prepare, and to the back office folks at Canada Post in our media and administration teams, particularly Danielle and Paula, for helping support the event. And thank you all for your participation, and especially our speakers, who we look forward to hearing from in the future about the success of their projects. That's it for this event. Have a great evening or a great afternoon, and take care of yourselves and stay safe. Thank you very much, and goodbye.